Thank you very much, folks. Welcome. It's nice to have you all here with us, and I think we're going to have a great discussion here. Marty is in charge, I like this, his title of talent, and it's sort of talent and money, talent and analytics. Yeah. So that's like all there is, right?
It pretty much covers a lot of bases.
So I think for you, that means all your jokes are funny and you never have to buy a drink in the bar, right?
That's actually true for some reason, especially this time of year at Walmart. Today actually happens to be the day that we pay bonuses to all of our store managers. They really are nice to me for some reason.
Yeah, right, for sure. So Marty runs an organization that has lots and lots of people, lots and lots of data. In previous conferences here, and whenever you talk about data analytics, one of the things that most people complain about is we just don't have the data to address a lot of these questions, and you do. So maybe the first question for you is, what have you found with all this data that was maybe the most interesting or maybe the most surprising thing that you found digging around in this over the years?
Just digging around, looking for it. Just first of all, just to give you all a quick context, at Walmart, we're very fortunate to have 2.1 million associates around the globe. Actually, the exact number, Andrew, who works for me, sitting in the front row, sitting up here, is hard for me to remember because it changes every day. But we have 1.6 million in the U.S., and so you think about the data that we're sitting on, and to your point, I would say where some people complain, wow, I don't have enough data. Sometimes we're like, wow, we got a lot of data. How do we get through it? I think, to your point about surprising, the first one and that I put out there, just starting at the top line of this one number, and it's that last fiscal year, FY23, we had 180,000 associates that were promoted in the company. 75% of our managers at Walmart today were hourly associates before. And I bring that up because as you start diving into that, looking at what are the things that our associates would start to tell us about why are they with Walmart, what engages them, things like that. A big part of it's opportunity. Sometimes opportunity means a promotion and a job for them, but we'll equally see them talk about opportunity in how we can improve tools. I would say a lot of the commentary that we'll get back from associates in the data and the research we do, they'll be just as engaged in wanting to talk about the merchandise in their store and give us feedback on the merchandise in the store as they will as an HR person that's done a ton of HR jobs. I always expect everyone to lead off with, talk to me about pay or this benefit or whatever. We certainly get that feedback. But we get a ton of feedback, first and foremost, about the job the associate's doing and how to make it better. And I think that was one of the first things that was really surprising as we dive into just the numerics, which, by the way, that always blows me. I mean, every time I look at our numbers, sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this. My last company, we only had 100,000 people. But I would say some of those things were pretty surprising for me. Another one, that I think about that was really shocking, and you think about the economy, as of the past couple of years, and you hear a lot about the number of jobs that are available, but while there's a large number of jobs available, there's not as many people available for those roles. And as we started doing research into retention and turnover, obviously, you would expect, as the economy heats up like that you'd see more turnover, particularly in retail and a lot of frontline work. We'll see those trends. What became really interesting to me and a little surprising was really all about the number of stores and clubs that actually would have very low turnover rates. Not all of them do, but we'd find them. What was not surprising, though, was as you dig into the research of why were those stores doing such a great job retaining associates, and I think everyone's going to go, wow, I hope y'all didn't do a lot of research on that because there's only been 1 billion books on this. It's about the manager. It's about the people they work with. It's about the culture in the building. And I thought it was kind of an interesting way to look at, how our associates as a cross-section of America, kind of how they end up responding to different environments. And I think one of the nice things about that is you get to learn a little bit more about what does make a really great environment and a great culture, but also where can you take that and improve our culture or improve our stores that aren't doing as well.
So just to paraphrase that, so you get a cross-section of American workers in every store, but the performance differs a lot.
Yep.
And if you were to put your finger on the thing, it is the people who are managing. And what would you say about the people who are managing that makes those stores better? What do you learn from the data about who they are or what their experiences have been?
Well, like I said a few minutes ago, most of them were hourly associates themselves at one point in time. So there's a lot of empathy that they start off with. They usually end up, we find they care deeply. When we look at the associate engagement surveys, you'll see, questions, light up about someone at work cares about me, or my manager cares about me, and as someone's invested in my development, you'll see those types of things. But I think also with the managers, one other thing that we saw that was really surprising, because at times you'll have a store open up because someone got promoted, or someone hopefully didn't do anything bad, but maybe we had to let them go. But you'll end up having stores open, and we'll say, hey, let's take the next manager that we want to move over to that store and move someone in. Whenever we started moving people too much, you actually end up you can cause some disruption in the community. And so as we saw, instead of filling one opening, you fill one opening with one store manager, and then you domino and have the next store have another person take that opening, and then another store manager take that opening, and then ultimately you get to the new store manager that takes one box, which is great in some ways because it's good for development, it's good for the stores, but at times it causes a disruption in that culture.
That's interesting. So one of the things I think I remember that you folks did is you sort of figured out when turnover was most likely. Can you tell us a little about that and what you guys did with that information?
Yeah, turnover in retail. I mean, I've been doing retail for 30 years with two different companies, and it typically works out about the same. And turnover usually is in that first 90 days, 180 days. And it really is, once you get someone to about I would say maybe 3/4 of a year mark to 1 year, the likelihood of them staying dramatically improves. And so it's really critical for us in that first 90 days to make sure that we are really working with that new associate to make sure that they become part of the community. Do they have a friend at work or someone who they can talk to and say, well, how do I do this? Are managers coming around and spending time with them, which are parts of our culture, but at times, if you're busy taking care of customers and another 300 associates in a store, you need some nudges to help you remember to do that.
So did you make sure I got this right, that you guys nudged the store managers, right, when people would hit that point?
Yeah, we've done a couple of things on that front. One would be we make sure we give the data to the managers on exactly when do we see people leaving, which by now most experienced store managers know first 90 days is important. But we'll give them that data, and we'll give them the data on here are the associates who are at what mark in that, and make sure that they have that information. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we're working on right now is with new devices and new tools that we're rolling out, we have a lot of workflow that we're putting right on mobile devices, like a lot of companies are. And in the flow of work, a store manager can see their inventory of what's all in the store. They can see the sales number. They can see customer data. Mm-hmm. But we're also putting associate data on there. And one of the things that we've started testing, but we haven't full on done it, is a nudge that would say, not, hey, your turnover is this, but hey, Steve is new. Why don't you go talk to Steve? Mm-hmm. Jane's 3 weeks in and she's missed a day. You might want to go ask her how she's doing and if her schedule works for her. Mm-hmm. So those types of nudges are the ones that we want to start. We've done a little bit of testing on, and we think there's a lot of value in that.
I want to ask you in a minute about the more complicated analyses you do, but is it fair to say that the things you learn the most from are the basic descriptive things, statistics, or is it analyses about what's driving this and what's causing that?
Both. I mean, I think, you obviously want to look at the basic descriptives, just like you do, whenever I'm talking to store managers, we'll talk a lot about, the correlation to the P&L, mm-hmm. and say, how you think about looking at customer data, sales data, profit data. You should think the same way about how you look at your associate data. And so it's important to know how many associates do you have, how many are full-time or part-time, how many have recently quit, and why. And so given that type of descriptive data is important. On the other side of it, though, we feel like it's equally important that we do deeper analysis on what are the key drivers, mm-hmm. If it's retention, of the associate or new opportunities that we see available for associates. How do we take that analysis and then feed that back and either look at our policies and say, what, maybe we need to change our policy, or is there something going on in part of the country or certain stores that it's not an issue that you would just nudge a manager about. It's something we need to learn from and we need to do about. We spend a lot of time also going out talking to our store managers and our store associates, all the leadership at Walmart does, and being able to augment what we're hearing and seeing while we're out in the stores, along with both descriptive data and analysis, because we think that that's how you start to create a virtuous cycle.
So you've got lots of different kinds of employees too, and some of them are higher paid and stay with you longer and all that kind of stuff. Well, not to make you pick on one, but I am going to make you pick on one. If you were to think about, the coolest thing for the data people in the audience out there, what's the kind of coolest thing that you guys have looked at, and what did you find in terms of analysis?
Oh my God, the coolest thing.
Machine learning based, or
yeah, I think on the machine learning based, I think some of the stuff we've been working on has been what are the new jobs that are coming up that we're going to need, where we're not only looking at internal data, but we're also looking outside. We're saying, what's the market availability of some of those jobs and roles? And so I'll pick on truck driver for a minute. Truck driver was really cool because as we were looking at that, depending on, kind of give it to y'all, as we've talked about, we've watched what's happening outside. Oh, you definitely saw in America a shortage of truck drivers that was going on, and we saw that in the data. We definitely saw in the areas where we hire, truck drivers. And there's if you've never been a truck driver or know about it, you've got to do. There's a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of licensure that you have to do in order to get those types of roles. Very important job. And as we would look at that type of a job and other jobs out there, we would be able to say, well, gosh, we're probably going to have a problem at some point with being able to find labor, because there's so much that you can obviously compete for inside. But we're lucky. We have 2.1 million associates. We could probably find a few people who'd be interested in this job, and the job pays $100,000 a year is what a Walmart truck driver can make. And so for us, looking at that, using that data to say, well, here's what we think is going to happen to the our needs for truck drivers, going to our associates and saying, hey, we've got this program now. If you want to learn to be a truck driver, you want us to pay for all the training, you want us to pay for your licensure, and oh, by the way, you can then get this job, and it can make $100,000 a year. That's compelling, and you saw a lot of associates say, yeah, I want to do that.
So this is what we used to call workforce planning.
It totally
you guys
is.
Are still doing it, yeah.
Totally is.
So actually, somebody asked a question about that, about the training for managers. So you're giving them all this data. Some people would just drown with it. What do you do to help them understand it? Is it all self-evident, or do you have to train them on, here's the data coming in, here's how to use it, here's how to think about it?
Yeah, I think it's mixed around different places and different people. I think for sure, we talk about it a lot, drowning people in data is a real thing. There's more dashboards now and more data available, I would say, within our company and within the world, than ever. And of course, a lot of our managers, if you're, I'll stay with, Frontline and in stores, they're used to getting a lot of data on the store. Like I said before, lots of data on inventory and the customer and their associates. And so for us, a lot of the work has been, how do we find those things that in different groups, where do we decommission old reports that really just shouldn't exist anymore? Where do you look for opportunities to say, I don't want to train you more on the data. I actually want to make the data tools a little better and more intuitive so that it'll show you or tell you what you need to know. You don't have to go looking for it and have 18 filters or whatever else to get to it. We think that's important. But I think there's always an opportunity for us to think about how do we continue to train people in data, and also, while we're doing it in whatever it is we're trying to get those managers, to do with the data at the same time, but mostly hear from them. I got to tell you, we were talking about product out there for a minute. To me, it's really important that any manager, if it's one in the home office, somebody in our store, supply chain, whatever, that we understand our personas really well of our managers, and we build products that are what they need to help them, help their associates, and help the customer. To me, that is what keeps me up at night.
If you think about your store managers, who are probably your most important job, I would think.
I believe so, yes.
Is there a piece of data that they've got that you would say is the number one most important thing to look at, or tells them the most on their dashboard? It doesn't have to be employee data. It could be store data.
Well, I mean, you know, I would say there's always like 4 pieces of data. In fact, this last year in stores, that were really our COO, and now he's the CEO of Sam's Club, Chris Nicholas. Chris had like a couple of data points that we said were absolutely critical. This first 2 won't be a surprise. Our sales number for the store, our profit number for the store, and how it's trending. The third one was our turnover/retention rate that they made equal to sales and profit, which, you know, really big deal. The other one was customer NPS and our associate version of NPS, Net Promoter Score. And so those were the 5 things that we said, if you really stay on top of those, you're going to run a good business.
A question from the audience on this gets maybe to a little of your own experience in this. So I should say Marty spent 10 years at Best Buy and then 10 years at Walmart, so you're like a model of stability here.
I'm almost 18 now at Walmart, actually.
Right. Think about the career paths. So the question was about career paths for managers. So if you're promoted from an associate, is the next step up store manager, or are there like steps in between?
No, we got a lot of jobs.
Yeah. So tell us what's the career path?
So here's a Walmart store. You can have a person, we call them a team associate, Walmart associate, and that's usually your entry level job, like somebody who either stocks shelves, so we'll say stocker, a digital job. Digital is the person who'll like come out and do like pickup and pull your order if you order on Walmart. And when you order on Walmart.com and want to have stuff delivered to your home, they'll pull that. So you've got, and then of course cashiers, and so that's the entry level type role that we'll see in the store. After that, we have a lot of specialty roles that are kind of the next rung up, and that could be anything from like certified pharmacy technicians, auto care associates, a lot of like skilled trade type jobs. One of my favorite ones in the store is cake decorator, because first, yum, and second, like it's a really unique job, and it is hard to find great cake decorators, by the way.
Do those folks come from the regular associates, or they have to come from outside?
A lot of them come from regular associates, and usually ones who are like really artistic, and they usually end up teaching each other. Like someone decides, hey, that's really cool. I see how you're making this cake. I want to learn how to do it too, and they do it. But for a while, like we were like going, wow, like sometimes it is hard to find a good cake decorator, because there's other companies that might come and say, hey, I want to take your cake decorator so they can decorate cakes for us. So a little competition, cake decorator wars.
Eat their mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And but so you have like those type of specialty type jobs. There's a lot of others in the stores. And then you go to what we call a team lead. A department manager is usually what a lot of people have also heard that called as hourly. Then it's assistant store manager, which we call a coach.
So how many team leads would there be in a typical?
Oh my Lord. I think team leads, I'm going to get this number wrong, so I'm just going to guess it's probably somewhere in the 20-ish range. I'm looking at Andrew so he can give me like a thumbs up, 25 to 30. I'm just going to keep doing it until Andrew gives me like the right, like where I'm really at. But team leads, they're hourly jobs. Obviously they're like, the store manager is the most important job, we would say, in the company. The team leads really run a store.
Okay.
And we love them. And the coaches then are the next step up. A team lead would aspire to be a coach, which is a salary member of management. Those jobs start at like $65,000 a year plus, plus base, and then that would move on to a store manager.
Okay, so career path might look like that. And once you get to be a store manager, is there an obvious next step up?
The obvious next step is market manager, then regional vice president, then we have a divisional SVP. We have 2.1 million people, so you need a little bit of like, a little bit of hierarchy to run the whole thing. Yeah. So you're probably going, wow, that's a lot of levels just to get we haven't even got to the home office yet at that point.
When you think about, back to the data issues here for a second, is there a data or a question that you really wish you had, if you had your magic data wand, that you could say, we'd really like to know this, or we'd like to have this analysis to help us address this problem? What would be top of your list if you had that magic?
Boy.
Or you had a group of, let's say, really smart Wharton MBA students who wanted to come do this for you?
I could use a few of those.
What would it be? What's the question?
Gosh, I think the first one is, I mentioned before about promotions and opportunity, which is a big thing at Walmart, that we're both proud of, but we want more of in the company. And there's tons of research and work around who's the right next person to do what job, and you can talk about assessments and the like. And those things are wonderful. I think you cannot spend enough money to continue to like work on that, to work on how do we find and train like the next people who are going to like lead our company, and keep investing in that with data resources and other resources, research, and then programs. Like, to me, like just helping people develop into the jobs that they want, and also helping us fuel the growth of the company and the talent we need. That is the one that I'm like, even though there's a ton of work we've done there, I see nothing but a ton more that needs to get done.
Okay. And this actually question follows exactly that, asking how do you determine those priorities in the company for data analysis? What determines, okay, we're going to spend time and money looking at this versus that? How's that?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question, whoever asked that. Like, thanks for leading with a fun one. Gosh, we start with strategy. Let me back up one step. For the past couple of years, the one thing we've been doing is reassessing everything that we do in people analytics, and saying, let's make sure that we've got our foundations clean. So we've gone back and spent a lot of focus time the past couple of years now, and so working on it on continuing to get the data foundation right. Again, lots of data, lots of people. We want to make sure we
Can I just pin you down on this one, because we're running a little out of time? What have you killed? Is there anything you say, okay, we're not going to bother looking at this anymore?
Yeah, it doesn't feel, Andrew's going to say that I'm maybe not being truthful about this, but I will say that I am. And we, discuss the rest in his performance evaluation. But yeah, we go through, there is a long roadmap list that we have. We have roadmaps and sprint reviews where we prioritize this, but we prioritize it against ultimately the strategy of the business. What are the things that the business is most focused on needing? What are we seeing in the research that says we need to focus here and help the business make those decisions? Mm-hmm. And then we focus against those programs. So, over the past couple of years, you've seen a lot of, things that have led to our, like LBU, which is our Live Better University, where, we give free college, but now we've also expanded that into other opportunities where people can get certifications, or I talked about the truck driver thing earlier. You've got, investments we've made in wages for the Frontline, but also more recently we made some announcements about investments in our store managers, which, by the way, also comes with a lot of other stuff. So all those had to be prioritized.
Yeah, any of those things, though, that you looked at, you say now, this data not so useful. Like some companies have said job satisfaction, we don't care so much about that anymore. It's not such a good measure. Anything you guys have concluded, you sort of said, well, we're going to spend our time focused over here, not so much over there anymore?
I think we've spent more of our time saying we want to stay really focused on Frontline first.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that we don't care about the data and analytics of our, like our technology team or one of our other teams, but we have been really clear that, if we've got, 20 slots for work to do, the majority of those are all going to be about our Frontline associates.
Okay. A question following that about the metrics that you track. So I imagine this is sort of about you. Okay. What are the top 5 things that you track weekly? That
we'll watch really closely. We watch headcount, obviously. We watch turnover. We watch like recruitment. Like, are we getting flow through of people applying for jobs and then offering and closing those. The other one I would put out there is, well, obviously I like watch wage and wage rates, and trying to think of the 5th one, Andrew, that I'd say it's top of mind. I'll like immediately just say it. I'm trying to go through the scorecard in my head right now, but obviously like mixed by job too is obviously very important.
So you folks obviously do lots and lots of hiring.
We do.
Is there some secret or important thing that you say, this really is predicting who's going to be a good, successful Walmart associate?
Yeah.
And what do you see?
A couple things. First of all, you have to like working with customers.
Okay.
And so we know customer service and wanting to talk to people is really important.
Is there a way you measure that?
We do. We have assessments that
okay.
that our team has built.
Okay.
Our learning and leadership team has built some amazing assessments that we'll work with them on the data side for those. But that's really we will find that people that do well on the assessment do end up having lower turnover, doing really well. Doesn't mean that someone who doesn't score like perfect on it won't do well, but we definitely find a lot of correlation to that. But to me, it has awful lot to do with a little bit of really just people who are going to feel comfortable being in front of customers and and also, wanting to, take care of like getting tasks, done in the store that we need to get done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Got a couple others here on that process. One is about onboarding. And what do you do to bring these new folks in? Is there an onboarding process? You do anything in particular for new folks when they come in that you found useful, especially?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had some things that we found useful when we onboard. I would say, first of all, like I mentioned before about our managers, the more engaged our managers are in the onboarding process and, creating a relationship with the associate, not just saying, hey, go put stuff on a shelf. The better they are at that, the better the experience for the associate. We definitely are looking at a lot more digital opportunities because we are heavily leveraging the use of mobile with our associates and being able to give them information about the company, answer their questions on there, being able to help them find things in the store because our super centers are really big and sometimes it's hard to find stuff even for associates who've been around a while. And then we'll move them because we think it's a really good idea to move something from one place to another and you can't find it. And so the Walmart app is fantastic for that. So the one thing is getting our associates are really comfortable with those tools. And it's one of the areas where really, I would say if there's a place for us to put a lot more focus on, and we've got a really great team actually working on a project around this right now, is how do we continue to get better at onboarding? Because we know that it is critical to get that right. And we think there are places where we're doing okay, and there's places where we can get a lot better. And
a related question on that about assessing people to be managers, store managers. What have you found that predicts who's going to be a good store manager?
Usually what we find is, two things. Well, I mean, I mentioned before the hierarchy of all the managers. Usually really good team leads end up becoming good managers. But whenever you move from individual contributor to leading people, that is very different. I mean, as I think most of you know. And I would say the first thing is just how do we see them operating with their peers? We certainly will put them through, interviews and the like to find that out. Sometimes it's really predictive, sometimes it's not. Because you'll certainly have some people where it really works and sometimes that wasn't the right job for them. But I would say for the most part, you find people who are just really good at doing the job they're in. We can usually train them up into those. And one of the things that we've been doing is we've been investing a lot more in things like we have a Walmart Academy for our management team that we put new managers through. We've always had some form of new manager training that we've done before, but we get better and smarter with it all the time. And
could you say just a little bit about Walmart Academy?
Yeah, Walmart Academy is it's an opportunity where we can take our managers that are brand new, we take them out of store, and instead of having to learn in the old days, you'd learn on the store, you'd change your badge from team lead to coach or whatever, and then you'd go to work and ideally sometimes you'd have a great manager that's spent a lot of time with you to get you prepared. Sometimes not. I think over the years, we've gotten a whole lot better about how do we sit down and start training that manager on, and not as much, somewhat definitely on the processes that we have in the store and what does it mean to be accountable. But we spend a lot of time teaching them about how to be culture champions, which a lot of them already were because they've been with the company for a while. But we spend a ton of time on that. We spend a lot of time on how to lead people and how to lead people effectively and how to give people goals and give people feedback and, have good conversations.
Okay. It looks like time for one more question.
All right.
This one is about getting information sort of real time or as close as you can from the associates.
Yeah.
What do you guys do?
Oh, wow. That's another good one. We obviously do all the surveys, that type of thing. We'll take a lot of the data I was just talking about, but one of the big areas of opportunity for us right now that we look at is there is obviously a ton of information out there that our associates will produce. Sometimes, in the history of the company, we call it coaching by walking around, or when we'd have conversations. But now at scale, being able to take feedback from associates, and I was talking about the mobile devices before, them having the ability to type in and say, I have an idea. And we get this all the time now from our associates where they'll say, I have an idea. It'd be cool if I could take my camera and swipe it across the back room, and immediately on my phone, I'll see the things that you want me to go put out on the shelf, and I don't have to go looking for it. That was an amazing idea that associates of ours have had. And we've taken that, we've built apps that now do that to help them become more productive.
So is there
but continue to do that at scale.
A place they can text to, a site that you go boom?
Yeah, we call it My Ideas, and it's kind of like a takeoff of if you ever read Mr. Sam's book, that's what we call him at Walmart, is Mr. Sam instead of Sam Walton. But whenever you read the book, it talks a lot about how he'd be in a store with his yellow notepad, and best ideas would come from associates, and it's our way of continuing this, because it's true. We got 2.1 million people that are closest to the customer. They give us amazing ideas. It is completely a competitive advantage. Another place where we can't get good enough at taking that information. And the one last thing I'll say about it is, from an associate standpoint, like, engagement surveys, things like that are fantastic. We like them. But we want to get a whole lot better at like real time. How do we take signals from my ideas? How do we take signals from emails they're sending? How do we take emails when they're upset about something? How do we look at, are they coming to work or not? Maybe they're not coming to work because we've done something wrong. Just keep looking at behavioral signals as well as, signals including on social media. Not that we're looking at their Instagram or anything like that. We're not. But we can definitely get sentiment about what people are saying about us. And how do you put those together to start to understand where can we be better as a company for our associates, better for our customers?
Is that then sort of company-wide, or is that store by store gathering that information?
Both. I mean, we gather a lot of it at company-wide right now. I think
Company-wide tools.
Yeah, company-wide tools. The idea is then disseminate it back down to the store. Obviously, we do a lot of that with like our associate surveys. We're talking about descriptive data, that type of thing, where we'll give the data back. And then we're just discussing, before we came out here, we think there's a spot in here for generative AI. We get millions of comments from associates, and being able to sort through that, categorize it, and then give it back to a store manager, a market manager, the associates, our CEO.
Good. We're getting a sign that it is time for us to go shopping.
All right.
So we're going to move off the stage and let the next folks come in. But before we do that, please join me in thanking Marty for being with us. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.